Hi, Ray Berger here with BrewBomb. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about optimizing your cup quality, brewing on either the HIVE Café 6 or the HIVE Café 3 by managing your flow rate. In the HIVE Café 6, the brew cell is deeper, so it holds 6 pounds of coffee. On the HIVE Café 3, the brew cell is 3 pounds, so it holds 3 pounds of coffee. Now, it is important that you manage the flow rate in these two devices a little bit differently. On the HIVE Café 3, with the shallow bed depth, water tends to percolate through the grind bed very, very quickly, which can impact cup quality. The HIVE Café 6, with a much deeper bed depth, slows the water down and the flow rate is not quite as important. The flow rate on these devices are primarily managed through two components. We have a drip tray and we have the tank lid. Now think about this drip tray. What manages the flow rate in this drip tray is the depth of the water in this tray. If the depth of the water is greater, there's more pressure on the water going through the drip nozzles, so the flow rate will be higher. So think of a deeper water in the drip tray flows faster. If the water in the drip tray is shallower, then the flow rate will be slower. Now, we're going to manage the water of the depth in the drip tray through this extendable spout on the tank lid. By moving this stainless handle here, you can see how I can extend the spout or retract the spout. Now, the relationship between that spout and the water depth, think about this tank lid sitting down in the water. If the spout is extended, it's going to make the water depth in the drip tray shallower. If the white spout is retracted, it's going to make the bed depth deeper, therefore increasing flow rate. So let's take a look and see how it actually looks on the brewer itself. So the tank lid sits here, and let's imagine the spout is all the way down. You can see how the gap between the spout and the drip tray is very small, which indeed controls the level of water in the drip tray. This would be your slowest flow rate. If I bring the spout all the way up, the water depth in the drip tray is going to be deeper, therefore the flow rate is going to be faster, therefore your brew is going to be faster. So on the HIVE Café 3 especially, we want to find the slowest flow rate that still feeds all of the brew nozzles and they all drip. That is our objective. Okay, let's take a look at 3 different flow rates. We're going to take a look at a flow rate that's too slow, and the consequence being all the drippers are not dripping. We're going to look at a flow rate that's too fast. The brew time is just going to rip. It's not going to optimize cup quality. And then we'll look at an optimal flow rate that's going to really cherry out your coffee. I also want to share a little tip and trick with you, and that is if you put the tank on the brewer with this little trick, it's more likely to get all the drippers dripping right off from the very beginning. Notice that the tank has a spout and a little stub on it. If you orient the slot in this top carrier toward the front, and you orient this little nub toward the front, it's going to make it easier to put the spout in the center of the drip tray. We're going to set the brew tank up there, and we're going to prime the brew nozzles first by holding the tank and filling the drip tray at the very beginning of the brew. We're going to take the tank, I'm going to orient it to where that stub is right in the middle. Okay, and you can see I'm holding it. Hold. You can see the drip tray is filling up with water. I'm going to keep filling past that line. And there you go. I can see all my drip nozzles are dripping. So all the drip nozzles are dripping, they're primed. Now what this is going to do, this may be a flow rate that is too slow, and you can see that because the white spout is extended all the way into the water bed. So it's not going to dispense more water into the drip tray until the water level gets all the way down there at the bottom of that white spout. But let's see what happens here as the water level in the drip tray becomes shallower and shallower. Okay, you can see that we're losing some flow. You can see how the flow rate is slowing down, still have not dispensed any water, and you can see we are actually losing some of our drip nozzles. Okay, there goes our dispense. So you can see on this particular brewer, with how this brewer is set on the table, that nozzle position really slows the flow rate down, and because we primed all the nozzles, it's actually would brew just fine. Now, each unit has its own characteristic, so this setting may not be optimal for your brewer. I always suggest before you do any brewing, you set the brewer up with no coffee in it and experiment with your drip and see that you're getting the spout properly adjusted to optimize the flow rate for your brewer, and for a HIVE Café 3, slow it down as much as you can get it. On the HIVE Café 6, it's a little less touchy. Okay, for example purposes, I do want to show you a flow rate that's too fast. And I'm going to bring the spout all the way in. Let's put the tank in position. I'm going to do that by filling the drip tray. Now you're going to notice how it manages a much deeper depth in the drip tray, and take a look at the flow rate. She's ripping. This would be a really fast brew. This would be too fast of a brew on a HIVE Café 3. On a HIVE Café 6, you might get away with this with a coarse grind, but if you're doing very fine grind brewing on either of these brewers, this fast flow rate may cause a problem with the brew. Let's take one last position. I'm going to pull this off. And let's imagine we were on the HIVE Café 6, and let's say we're just looking for a mid-range flow rate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a mid-range position on the spout, and let's take it from fully retracted to fully extended, and I'm going to put it about halfway. You can see the water is going to come down to the level of the spout. When she does, she's going to go ahead and refill the tray. This level right here is just about to that line, and you can see we've got really good performance on all of our drip nozzles. Now you may notice a little condensation inside the brew cell. We highly recommend brewing with 95-degree water. Warmer water has less surface tension and definitely performs better in the drip tray. The nozzles are more likely to dispense consistently with warmer water. Your result on your cup quality is going to be greatly enhanced, as is your extraction percentage. So just think about that as a way to fine-tune your coffee for the experience that you want your customer to have.